This is critical thinking in the nervous system lab, and here are the questions. The first one on types of fibers or impulses, and this is something about reflexes, and here are certain definitions that you should know. So let's look at this first question where it asks you, which of the following regions will carry only efferent fibers or impulses? So I've put fibers and impulses just to tell you that either word could be used. So we have all of these regions. So let's first label them. In this diagram, I've added a little bit up here. So A here is the dorsal ramus. B is the dorsal root. C is the ventral root. D is the spinal nerve itself. And E is the ventral ramus. Now we have to determine which carries only efferent fibers. And for this, I have this diagram here where I'm going to show it to you. So let's look and see how the fibers, which areas will carry only efferent fibers, and then we'll see also which areas carry only afferent and ones which carry both. So let me first draw. Let's say that we know that this is the dorsal root and this is the ventral root. So all afferent impulses or sensory impulses will pass. So if this is coming from the skin or any other area from a receptor, it will and it's traveling in the ventral ramus, it will pass into the spinal nerve, have its cell body in the dorsal root ganglion, and this cell body is going to be pseudo-unipolar. So remember, the dorsal root ganglion has pseudo-unipolar neurons or cells. The fiber or impulse will travel in, and then it will enter the gray matter here. And then, further it can go up into the higher centers or synapse with an interneuron and come down. So this is traveling this way. So this is coming along the ventral ramus. The same thing can happen along from the back of the body. The ventral ramus supplies the front and the lateral sides of the body. The dorsal ramus supplies the back of the body. So from the back of the body, sensory or afferent impulses come in, get into the spinal nerve. Again, they enter the dorsal root. So all afferent impulses enter the dorsal root and then enter this part, which is the posterior horn of gray matter. So afferent impulses will travel, as you can see, in the dorsal root. Now let me use, let's see about efferent impulses. Efferent impulses always begin here in the spinal cord. They begin in the anterior horn cells. They exit the spinal cord, get into the ventral root, go into the spinal nerve, and if they have to go to a muscle in some cases glands, but let's say muscle, skeletal muscle in the anterior aspect or lateral aspect of the body, they'll go into the ventral ramus. So they go here and they go to muscle. If on the other hand they have to go to the muscles of the back of the body, so they will again exit through the ventral root, pass in the spinal nerve, and then go in the dorsal ramus and then go towards the back of the body. So you can see that these are efferent impulses which will go to skeletal muscles here, and they exit through the ventral root. Now looking at this picture, you can see that the rami have both afferent and efferent fibers. So both the dorsal ramus and the ventral ramus. The spinal nerve also has afferent and efferent fibers. The dorsal root has afferent and the ventral root has efferent. So the question asked which was the region which carried only efferent fibers. So we can see from this picture only efferent is present in the ventral root. And if we go back to this diagram, we can see that C is the ventral root, and hence C would be the answer to this question. So it's really important for you to know all these be able to identify all these areas in this picture, plus identify what kind of fibers or impulses are carried in them. And then you must also know about the gray matter in this area. For example, this is the posterior horn, this is the anterior horn. The posterior horn receives afferent impulses. The anterior horn gives rise to efferent or motor fibers. You should also know that afferent means sensory and efferent means motor. So these are some important things that you must know.